Frank have been abandoned by Spanglish World. No, we haven't. Unfortunately, my condolences to Eduardo Harari, who lost his father. And as our producer and the guy with the controls, we're going to try to figure it out on our own. I'm learning how to do this. I'm not a techie. I won't pretend to be a techie. But what I will pretend to be is a host of a show called Candid Frank Live with Aaron William Freeland. And if you want to check out any of the programs we do, you can just go over to Candid Frank Stanisci at YouTube. Candid Frank Stanisci 1030, and we'll have all our stuff there. Aaron and I are here today to talk about some stuff that's going on in the world. Aaron, um, I have your notes here, and I'm gonna pull them up as soon as I find them here. Here we are. Here's Aaron's notes. Let me bring Aaron's notes over. There we go.
No worries.
So first of all, the big story for me was the definition of inconsideration at the Oscars last night. This lady decided to wear some dress, and it was like voluminous. Is that a word? Yeah, I guess it is.
Yep, it is
And
now.
I think it describes the dress, and it basically covered her about 18 inches around her head, and then all the way down, and all you saw were people doing this, trying to look around her. Now you can't tell me she didn't know, Aaron. I mean, it made her famous, right? Because now some people know who she is because everybody asks, "Who is this woman with the white dress?" How do you feel about something like that?
Look, I'll be honest with you. I'm never going to be at one of these events, but if I happen to be a seat filler or a celebrity who's seated behind this individual, I might be a little miffed. The individual in question, just for those who aren't aware, is a singer by the name of Thames. She was a musician nominated for Best Original Song for "Lift Me Up" from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Right.
I will say that her choice of dress was interesting. It was a leather couture number with a frothy tulle skirt and train. However, the rounded tulle headpiece noticeably blocked other people in the audience. Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, you wear those outfits to get attention. You're there to see and be seen. So I don't particularly take issue with it. I maybe I would have were I seated behind her, but tis what tis.
Well, I, on the other hand, am not here to shame her in any way, but I wouldn't use her name, and I have no respect for people like that who are that obtuse, because she's obtuse. You know, she would have had to have not realized what she was doing, and that, in essence, is the definition of obtuse. And by obtuse, folks, I mean doesn't give a rat's ass about anybody behind her because it's all about her, and that's what it comes across like, and that's what it is. And I'm that person. I'll never buy a record of hers. I probably won't buy a record near her record. That, to me, that's the definition of self-centered, passive aggressive, nasty behavior. And it's nasty behavior for you to go in that dress, knowing where you're sitting, and sitting there with that on, and not knowing or realizing that people. It really irritated me to look at it, because I see this lady trying to do this to see what's going on, because Jimmy Kimmel was over there drawing some attention to him. No, this is not about shaming. This is about identifying obtuse self. I don't know. Just to think you're that important that you have to do that, and to not know you do that, doesn't speak to you a very intelligent person, I think, because that was rude. It was rude, inconsiderate, and unfair to the people who, I don't know if they buy the tickets there and if they get them for free. I don't know how that works, but if I paid for a ticket to sit behind her, I would not have been happy at all. Let's go to shenanigans. Polivier, one of your favorite people.
Yes, Poilievre has called for a spending cap and tax cuts in the upcoming federal government. I don't know if anybody is paying attention to this particular individual, but he's accused Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of fueling inflation. He's also criticizing the Bank of Canada because they're relying on interest rates to tame high inflation, spurred in part by global trends and by the economy as it heads towards a slowdown and possible recession. Um, he's outlined three main demands, and that's beef up paychecks by cutting taxes, deductions, and clawbacks, match every dollar of new spending in the budget with $1 of savings by cutting back, and increasing the number of affordable homes um, by removing government gatekeepers, freeing up land, and speeding up building permits. I'm not sure exactly how he thinks that this is going to help our infrastructure when things like fire and EMS and policing and education and roads and power lines and that sort of thing are all paid for by taxes. But hey, he's got to have something that he can wave at Trudeau, and this apparently appears to be his best gambit.
This is his version of wearing a big dress in a big crowd.
Exactly.
Um, London, Ontario, oh geez, officer shot during long standoff with armed man.
Yeah, there was a 15-hour standoff with a barricaded man in London, Ontario on Saturday that ended up with two police officers being shot, a man being arrested, and a neighbor who was adversely affected by the entire ordeal. The two officers were taken to hospital about 7:30 p.m. on Saturday with non-life-threatening injuries. Further updates on their conditions have not been released. Adrian Neil Campbell has been charged with second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. The deceased individual in this case was actually apparently known by the individual who was taken into custody. So this was a harrowing situation, but I am glad that it was brought to a resolution. Not necessarily a resolution everybody would have preferred, in which everybody lived, but at the same time, thanks to the actions of the police, it has been resolved.
It began and ended there, and that's the thing about being a police officer. They run towards gunshots, not away. Um, so every time that they survive that kind of behavior, I am very glad. But still, they were injured while trying to protect the people in Peel, like they always try to do. So we hope those officers have no complications with their injuries and they become 100% well after whatever recovery time period they need. That's what I hope anyway. So Quebec, Parti Québécois leader gets support of nearly 99% of the delegates. So he has a pretty good, I guess you could say he has confidence in the vote.
Exactly. PQ leader Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, basically, this is historic support from the grassroots. He suffered a historic defeat in October's provincial election, but he garnered backing of 98.51% of members who cast a ballot and a confidence vote at the Parti Québécois convention in Sherbrooke on Saturday. He never expected, he said, to receive this unprecedented level of support, but the results must be taken with modesty. The party did not disclose how many of the 500-odd delegates voted, but apparently enough of them did that he got 98.5% of the vote.
Yeah.
They were down to 3 legislators in the National Assembly after winning only 10 seats in 2018. Hopefully, they'll be able to make a comeback in the next election.
Neither protests nor garbage piles stopped French pension bill.
So, for those keeping up with this situation, there was a rather unpopular bill in the French Senate that would raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. There were labor strikes, street protests, and literally tons of uncollected garbage piling up every day. Elizabeth Borne, the French Prime Minister, tweeted late Saturday after the 195 to 112 vote that she looked forward to the bill's definitive passage to assure the future of our retirement. There are several different outcomes here, but what they're hoping for is that they will be able to do that in order to protect things like they've basically got a situation, a system similar to ours in which there are retirement benefits that are paid to individuals. By raising the retirement age to 64, the hope is that they'll be able to lengthen the amount of time that will be able to continue to be paid.
Here's an interesting thing that's been talked about. Some countries already have it. Canada's next in line. The U.S. is in the near future, maybe. To block access to news on Facebook. Instagram, if online act adopted as is. So Canada is looking to, I don't know, you describe it. It sounds like, you know, the burden of creating the news. There has to be a profit margin somewhere, and somehow Facebook's going to have to contribute to that profit margin because they do all the work, being the media companies.
Well, as it currently stands, we're talking about Bill C-18 here, which is the proposed Online News Act. Meta is saying if it passes in its current form, they will no longer be able to. People will no longer be able to access news on Facebook or Instagram. Personally speaking, I would prefer to go directly to the news companies themselves to get the news, as opposed to hearing it through a Facebook or Instagram filter, because Lord knows everybody has that one uncle who swears that the articles that he's posting on Facebook are the real deal and, not some far-fetched conspiracy theories. News companies, as far as I'm concerned, should do news. Media companies like Meta, Facebook, and Instagram should try to keep their noses out of that, because invariably, without the checks and balances that are inherent in a media system, and without journalists, actual journalists to do the work, a lot of it comes across with bias.
And an opposing view might suggest you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
It's entirely possible. Everybody's allowed their opinion, even if it's wrong.
Yes.
And again, we are not news pundits.
Yes.
We are not reporters or journalists of any sort. We are aggregators here.
We're opinions. We have opinions.
Yes, exactly.
And that's and nobody here is well, we're trying to pass the news along, but unfortunately, unless you speak directly to the news source, or in essence, we're past. And this is essentially what happens in the news world too, right? What we're talking about here is how close to the truth, you are in disseminating information. I'll frame that by saying this: everybody knows the broken telephone theory, right? Everybody understands what the broken telephone theory means. It means that every time something is taken and not, because you can't, everybody adds their own spin or translation of what they're saying. By the time a situation ends up starting here and ends up over here, a lot can change. That broken telephone theory. The point that this does, I guess, Aaron, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's basically just taking Facebook out of the news business and keeping it strictly in the opinion business and or community conversation business, as opposed to news. I guess the good thing would be that in this case, maybe what they're hoping, at least anybody who supports this, no news is good news.
That's certainly one way to look at it, for sure. But yeah, this would essentially eliminate Facebook as a news maker and more simply as a place to disseminate information of all stripes.
Yeah, and the edification, the other way when it comes to news stories. The difference between Facebook, it's not that you can't comment on a news story. Every news story has that comment section. The difference being that comment section is after the story. In Facebook, it precedes the story. So, it's that old saying, leading with, you should have led with that. Well, that's the bad side of leading with that. So yeah. So I don't think I'm going to miss the fact that news isn't on Facebook. In fact, I think the more that Facebook is treated like a non-news service, I think the better off we are. It's a place where we do our show, we post our show, we talk to friends, we have comments. We could comment about the news without posting the story. Then it would just strictly be a comment, that's all it would be. So, I don't know. We'll see in the long term what this creates, what happens out of it. We talked at the beginning of the show about the lady in the white dress. Enough about her. What'd you think of the Oscars? It was an interesting set of winners. I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, it went a lot faster, I think, than years previous, or at least it seemed to feel like that, especially with the fact that I think they were doing 23 different awards this time around, as opposed to the truncated version that they did last year. One thing I did notice was their trend of letting certain people speak longer than others.
Oh, it continues.
Oh, yeah, that hasn't changed.
Oh, yeah.
But it was interesting to see A24 garner as many awards as they did between Everything Everywhere All at Once and The Whale and some of the other productions that were up for prizes there. Great to see Sarah Polley take home an award for Best Adapted Screenplay. Good to see Brendan Fraser take home the award for Best Actor. And nice to see Jamie Lee Curtis and Michelle Yeoh get the recognition as Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress. Strong case could be made for Angela Bassett to have received the award. I personally would have preferred to have seen it gone to her, mainly because I saw Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I have not had the opportunity to see Everything Everywhere All
this,
at Once.
I see you just stepped in it right there.
Well,
We almost made it out.
it
We almost made it out. How
bias.
many movies of
Bias.
the ones up for for the Oscar did you see?
I actually saw quite a few of them, so I wasn't entirely upset by that.
I saw two.
All Quiet on the Western Front is available on Netflix, so that was there. Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery was also on
I saw
Netflix.
three. That's right.
Yeah,
Glass Onion. I saw Glass Onion as well.
nice.
Um, I think it was fast too, except for the odd time they seemed to let go. You know, they introduced the pitch clock. At least it
Yeah,
sounded like they were introducing the 45-second pitch clock, but it seemed to me there were a couple of times it's more than 45 seconds. And I think, there wasn't that much from Jimmy Kimmel. Like he really didn't talk that much. I think that was part of why it also went a little quick. There seemed to be some sort of promise of no political stuff on the show. Well, there were a few occasions when it was politicized. I'm not here to criticize pro or against what was politicized or the political moments. I don't want to get into that, but they did show up a little bit. But what I can say is I agree with you. It moved a lot quicker than 4 hours would indicate.
yeah, no, and it's one of those things that did really seem to flow a lot better the way that they had it formatted this time around.
And Rihanna did her thing pregnant again.
Yep, pretty neat to see. It was a great performance.
Yeah,
I also particularly enjoyed Natu Natu from RRR. That was a lot of fun.
yeah.
And when the winner actually sang his speech to a
Yes.
Carpenter song, that was pretty neat as well.
And of course, I guess the saddest moment of the evening was when John Travolta paid
Mm.
tribute to Olivia Newton-John. That was,
Yeah.
and all the people who have passed away this year. Well, respect is respect, and sometimes in this case, bad news is good news because it's a chance to celebrate in a venue where the people on the screen who had passed away had worked very hard to contribute to the Oscars and the various things that are a part of the Oscars. Let's go to sports. The Canadian Football League, Ticats, Khalil Lewis, defensive back Cortez Davis. Busy are the Ticats.
Yeah, I mean, what with bringing in Bo Levi Mitchell, now they need to find the supporting cast to go around him. So they've signed American receiver Khalil Lewis and American defensive back Cortez Davis. Lewis spent training camp with the Ticats in 2021. He signed with the Falcons in 2019 as an undrafted free agent and also spent time with the Seahawks before picking up with the XFL's Houston Roughnecks in 2020 and the USFL's Philadelphia Stars in 2022. Davis was the University of Hawaii product and played 36 games over 3 seasons with the Rainbow Warriors. It'll be interesting to see how both of them fit in with the newly revamped Ticats offense.
Lions and DBs, Elijah Benton and Najee Reams. How about them?
So Benton, 6'1", 205, had a stop in with the Tennessee Titans, a cup of coffee with them back in 2022. He signed with the Cleveland Browns as a non-drafted free agent in 2020 when it was activated late in the season. Following his release from there, he had practice roster stints with Seattle, New England, and the New York Jets back in 2021. As for Reams, 6'2", 195, started with the XFL's Vegas Vipers. So he attended the 2022 training camp with the Detroit Lions after signing as a non-drafted free agent that spring. We'll have to see how it goes for both of them, but that certainly adds a little bit of a wrinkle to the Lions' defensive backs.
Argos did some work.
Yep. So they brought in Cameron Dukes and wide receiver David Ungerer III Dukes is the second quarterback signing that the Argos have made in the wake of MBT leaving for the USFL. They also signed Brian Scott. Dukes most recently spent time with the Vegas Nighthawks of the Indoor Football League in 2022, throwing for over 1,100 yards and 27 touchdowns in the Indoor League. Ungerer spent the last 3 years in Hamilton after being drafted by the Ticats in the second round of the 2019 draft. He caught 33 passes for 456 yards and 2 touchdowns in 38 games for the Tabbies.
Let's talk about the Argos.
We just touched on them.
Oh, sorry, the Flyers.
No worries.
Let's go to hockey, the Flyers.
As everyone knows, there's been a little bit of upheaval in Philadelphia. Gone is Chuck Fletcher. He's out of there. Danny Briere is back in. Chuck was known for not being able to say the word rebuild, which is what Danny Briere has embraced right off the hop. Unfortunately, I think Tortorella is still going to have a rather large role with the Flyers in determining the roster. He's milking everything that he can out of his past coaching success, and I don't blame him for that. It just seems that he hasn't been particularly successful lately. So I would be loath to put all of my eggs in one basket with him. But they're making the best of a bad situation, I think. And with Torts there, they're trying to rebuild the Philadelphia brand.
Yeah, well, I'd like to invent a new word. Build.
Yeah, drop the re.
Right? Drop the re, because it's the build. It's not the rebuild. Because anyway, you have to come back from somewhere to be a rebuild. Let's talk about the Habs and the Devils adding to the Montreal woes.
Yeah, they after beating the Capitals 3-2 in a shootout on Thursday, Nathan Bastian and Nico Hischier bagged first period goals to give the Devils a quick jump out on the Habs and kept them there. Thomas Tatar added an empty netter. Dawson Mercer extended his point streak to 12 games, which is a franchise record for skaters under the age of 22. Jake Allen, on the flip side, made 34 saves. The Canadians also blocked 25 shots, but this is now their sixth game without a win. So things that were bad continue to get worse in Montreal.
Canucks are playing really well, and unfortunately for the Senators, they played them and lost.
So yeah, these are both teams that were supposedly in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, but as it currently stands, with a 4-game win streak going on here, the Canucks seem to be playing themselves out of the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. And the Senators right now, after their most recent string of going 12-3-1, have lost a couple, but as it currently stands, they're not entirely out of the running either. They're in a rather tenuous position right now, halfway between being in contention and almost in a wild card spot, and almost being low enough the standings to make it not worth it. The fact that they've lost their goalie, their primary goalie, Talbot, for another couple games at least, means that they have to rely on Mads Sogard, who's been playing well, but he's a rookie, so it is what it is for them.
Yeah. How about the Flames and Sens?
So yeah, the pain continued after a 5-2 loss to the Canucks. They turned around and dropped another decision 5-1 to the Flames. Markstrom played really well. It was good to see. Elias Lindholm scored the game winner and had an assist, and Markstrom made 30 saves in the effort. So big win for them. Nazem Kadri had a pair of primary assists on the game. Jonathan Huberdeau had a goal as well. So it's one of those things where different players are finally starting to wake up, but at the same time, we don't know if it's too little, too late.
The Jets had a good game.
Yeah, they needed a win, and they happened to be playing the Tampa Bay Lightning at just the right time. They seem to have been rather unsuccessful as of late. So Nino Niederreiter and Morgan Barron got second period goals. Connor Hellebuck chipped in with 33 saves, and they managed to hold on to win 3-2.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Leafs, and they played the Oilers. They got their revenge.
They did. After a particularly bad 5-2 game just about a week ago, they found themselves playing the Oilers again. This time in the second period, found themselves down by a chunk, 3-1. Managed to roar back to 5-3 by the end of the period, and that was pretty much it. They didn't really look back the rest of the night. Um, they scored 4 goals in just under 6 minutes, and Connor McDavid was a non-factor. So it was interesting to see.
Well, the Leafs played well. They had a slow start in the first period. Their goaltender had a pretty good game. He had a bit of a slow start early in the game, but then as the game wore on, he made some pretty spectacular saves, and it appears he's given himself another opportunity to play another game.
Yeah, he definitely appeared to be back off that ankle injury. Interesting to note here, Sam Lafferty, Jake McCabe, and Eric Gustafson, the trios that were picked up just before the trade deadline, while the Leafs were on a road swing, actually played their first home games. Luke Shen is going to have to wait a little longer for his first home game because Baby Shen arrived over the weekend. So
It's about
congratulations to him.
time. It's about
Right?
time. Well, I hope he enjoys the time. Newborn's always a lot of fun and a lot of responsibility and not much sleep.
No, definitely
Part of the
not.
punishment. Let's talk about the Leafs in the context of one thing that they've been able to win more than their share of the games. They're playing relatively well. They haven't hit a slump in a while. I'm not trying to jinx them. Knock on wood that I don't push them into a slump. Um, but they do have the opportunity here to work those players into the lineup, and it's been confirmed. And now everybody knows why there's 7 defensemen. The feeling is there's more of a growth period required, a steeper learning curve for the defensemen than there is with the forwards. So therefore, there's more defensemen. That tells us that when the season gets to that postseason, we'll probably see again 6 defensemen. I don't know. It's not a bad idea having 7 defensemen. Do you think that the group that they have is better suited to have 7 defensemen, or do you think this 7 is an experiment and it will become the experiment will end?
Well, certainly looking at the fact that they've been playing with an 11-7 configuration means that Keefe gets to have a little bit of fun with his top lines and drop them in a bit of a blender every once in a while. As it currently stands, the lines that they were running are Kerfoot, Matthews, Marner, Bunting, Tavares, Nylander, Steves, Lafferty, Yarncroke, Zach Aston Reese, David Confa, Nola Chari. Then they've gone with Riley Brody, McCabe and Hall, and Giordano Lilligren on defense. Those are, what they were running through practice today. So we'll have to see how it shakes out. I do remember, however, when they posted the lines before the other Leaf game, they had Bunting and Tavares, but then no right winger listed. It was just a gap.
Yeah, there's the
And
space.
if I recall correctly, I think Hall actually took a couple shifts up at forward as well. So
Well, he was there in paper. They had him up there in paper just to fill out
yeah.
the 12 the lines. Um, let's talk about Bunting. There was a bit of a brouhaha with him and Kane wrestling. It seems half the distance of the ice, and then it ended up becoming a real, tussle. What do you make of? We talked a little bit about Bunting. Do you think that makes the point that we were talking about earlier last week about the fact that I understand about him drawing penalties, but there has to be a no reaction when he succeeds, and or when he doesn't get one, and we're getting a reaction both ways, which I think is a detriment to his ability to play his game, which is drawing penalties.
Yeah, his desire to point out the referee's mistakes doesn't make him endearing. That I think that's trying to be as polite as possible as I can about
Deering is
it.
a nice word to use in that case. Let me tell you, holy mackerel.
Mikey needs to shut the heck up when he doesn't get his
Yeah,
call.
be quiet.
That's one of those things.
Just
But
play the game or games and forget the characterization of each play. He doesn't need to do that. Just make the play, do the thing, and we'll see. You know, it's going to take a while for him to erase the interpretation of the officials and or the reputation that he's created. It's going to take a while to undo it. Um, and it is a problem. It will be a problem. It's a sore point for the Leafs. They love the way he plays. he'll stand up for his teammates. I think everybody agrees that he's a team player, but we'll see what if he can reorient his craft in a manner that does not draw attention, only penalties.
Yeah, and it's one of those. It doesn't take much to make that shift. You know,
Absolutely.
it's a small adjustment that he'll need to make. So,
Well, he's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Follow the show on Candid Frank Stanisci 10:30. Spanglish World will be back again. We hope Eduardo and his family find peace. I offer my condolences to his family again. Eduardo losing his father. We're thinking about you.
take care.
And you guys all, everybody take care.